You are in Tulum still, and you're up on the walls a day later on these like great stone and earthen walls. You're looking down at the people who are camped outside the city already. Done a lot of work in a short amount of time. There's about 2,000 Dunlendings who have gathered from nearby tribes, villages, and things like that who are camped outside the walls. And the Queen, or the High Chiefess, has assured you that there'll be 3 times that that she can gather. But it's a question of how long that will take. Dunland is pretty large, and so it might be another day or two, if not more, before all these people can gather here. Because mustering tribal people takes a long time. So you're in a sort of situation where you have a force, but it's not a huge force. And they're gathering every day. It's busy in Tulum. There's a lot of work being done, and you can see up in the top level, people have been brought in to help the smiths to like make things, javelins, spearheads, things like that, working hard, and everyone in the town seems to be doing something to help with the war effort. It was surprising, I think, to you how quickly they were able to like switch their whole focus into something else. So the whole town now is working towards this one goal. But even so, yeah, it'll be maybe another few days before the whole force of Dunlendings is here.
Will there be enough? Says Glinda to Faroth.
Faroth hasn't really dragged his eyes off the horizon. He's expecting the reinforcements to come from for some time. And he shoots you a sideways glance before returning his gaze to the distance. And he says, "We don't have much time to find out. With every moment we wait, the likelihood of relieving Rohan gets much more slim."
Yeah, you had said that from behind you as he was approaching, and now he stands next to you. And in the corner of your eye, you see him nod slowly. We cannot linger more than another 2 days, I fear.
Lloyd, do we have an estimation of how many forces are besieging Helm's Deep right now? Did we get word of that?
Yeah, earlier this morning, a Dunlending scout party would have come back to say that they think there must be 10,000 Easterlings camped in front of Helm's Deep. Easterlings, they just called them all men of the East. They wouldn't know the difference. But they would describe to you the difference between Haradrim, Variags, Wayne Riders, and Easterlings, who are from Rune. So all these, it's a Confederate army made of all these different Eastern peoples.
This is a great gamble, but it is one that I am sworn to take. We must march on them.
Yeah, Glinda, his head turns swiftly at that to look at you. That is a large host, King Faroth. Far greater in number than our own. We would break upon them like waves against the stone. Perhaps if the Rohirrim within could ride out as we charge. And he sort of, deep in thought, looks back out, follows your gaze back out to survey what's before them, the horizon beyond.
We must speak with the others. We must not waste this time. If we must linger, we shall linger and strategize. And Farrell is going to do his best to find Beregond first, hoping that Glindair will find his sister.
Cut to an active montage of the two of them, like sweeping through the village with the music starting to swell. And where do we find Beregond and Anariel?
Beregond, you find training, watching the men practice their archery. He set up butts, and they are firing at butts, both from a hidden place and also from traveling and walking, sort of half running in the open, trying to hit various straw practice butts, and straw men put about the side. And he started the practice, and he's singled out a few of the better archers to. He has trouble communicating. He doesn't speak Dunlending, and few of them speak very good Westron. So he's singled out a few of the better archers to train the others in. He explains to the best what he wants, and they explain to the men what they need to do. And they're running through the training, and he's overseeing them. But you notice he's a little bit distracted, and his hand keeps going to the his hand absent-mindedly is just scratching at the bit of his backpack where your box and the ring was. It's almost like he's not conscious of his hand, but that's what it's doing. Have you seen any more arriving? We cannot wait here long, but if we go with too few, our help will be useless anyway.
More every day. Not enough against 10,000, he says as he surveys the archers in training.
Surprise can make a small number fight like a large number, and confusion can turn 10,000 into an ineffective fighting force, but into more dangerous for themselves than for their enemy. 10,000 badly managed can turn against themselves, can not recognize each other in the night. These men of the East do not see like orcs in the darkness. If we fight at night, and have a call out sort of words so we can recognize our allies, then in the confusion they could end up fighting themselves, thinking they are fighting us. They are a divided force. They're a confederacy, and a confederacy, I don't know in the East, but I believe there are more than one language in the East. If we use darkness and confusion against them, and attack with surprise, then maybe we can strike a telling blow and break out of Helm's Deep.
Yeah, Glyndar nods thoughtfully and looks to Faroth.
But any two-sided attack needs to be coordinated well, and the men in Helm's Deep, everyone knows that the Rohirrim charge, there are few more fearsome things on a battlefield than the charge of the Rohirrim, but it needs to be coordinated with the charge of their allies as well. Otherwise, they will find themselves fighting alone and unable to stand against the numbers. We need someone to get in there, and we need some way of communicating, he says, looking up at the sky to see if he can see the eagle.
Nariel walks up, a rolled piece of paper in her hand. Your mind is the same as my own, Beregond. And I have been considering much based on the information the Dunlendings have provided. She'll kind of unroll this sketched map of Helm's Deep. Feroth, I would see you go with some of the Dunlendings, perhaps with Beregond, and go through the secret way into Helm's Deep. There you can find the Rohirrim. You can tell them of the plan, and you can join them in the charge. Glendair and I will take a different route. It is unfortunate that the Easterlings are so close to Isengard. If we do not defeat them now, then they will join with the orcs and the rest of the forces of Sauron. They are more clever and more cunning than orcs, their machinery more advanced. I would speak to the elven lords, see if we can take archers, perhaps some of the dwarves as well, and snuff them out. And when we meet them at the outside of Helm's Deep, you lead the charge with the Rohirrim from the inside, and they shall be caught between us.
Faroth listens intently, and you see the faint shadow of surprise upon his face for a moment before inclining his head respectfully. And he says, "That is quite the plan. And it is one that I would follow."
It is dangerous.
We need one more piece of information. Wiglaf, the Dunlending war leader, is the best one to tell us how long it will take them to get enough of their muster and march to Helm's Deep. He's the one who can tell us when they would expect to arrive.
Agreed. However, I do not know if we can wait for them. Perhaps they could join us when they are ready, if the battle still goes. And if not, then they can meet what is left of our forces at Isengard.
The battle is still in the balance, but it will not be that way for long. I agree. We cannot wait. What forces that do arrive here must marshal as quickly as possible to Helm's Deep. But the excursion into the cave, that cannot wait. What you propose in Ariel will take time. And if we have 2 days, then it must only take 2 days. Who will you consult of the Elven Lords?
Who would be in charge of that.
The elven military.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it would. Well, he's dead, isn't he? Glorfindel's dead. So it's probably going to be Elrond, I think. Then in that case, it usually would have been Glorfindel. Or if Thranduil was here, it'd be him. But he's not yet. So it's probably going to be Elrond.
Mm. The decision is Lord Elrond's to make. Although I anticipate his support.
Have the Dunlending scouts seen Isengard? Is the place besieged, or are the forces of the enemy concentrated at Helm's Deep?
The scouts would have said that the Easterlings are at Helm's Deep. Specifically, they would have set up a war camp there, and would have said during the process, like part of it would be they'd be building palisades and like ditches and stuff like that, so that harder for the Rohirrim to charge out if they ever were inclined to. That they were building machines in front. So is that the plan?
Faroth will look to his companions.
We do not need to strike a decisive blow at Helm's Deep. What we need to do is get the Rohirrim out and concentrate and get them to a place where they can assist the defense of Isengard. The war of Middle-earth will be decided at Isengard. If we can buy the White Council enough time to do their task, that is.
No, Beregond, if we do not defeat the force at Helm's Deep, then they will join those who are coming to Isengard. They are alone, and this is our best chance.
Why do we need to... What? He says?
These forces would surely join the orcs when they beset upon Isengard. If we do not scatter them now, then we shall face not only the army of orcs, but 10,000 Easterlings, all intent on breaking down the walls.
One way or another, the fate of Rohan's culture, its legacy, its heirs hang in the balance. The Golden Hall is already ash. If the Rohirrim fall, Rohan will be gone forever. Our priority will be to extract the Rohirrim, but we will send as many Easterlings back to the pit they crawled from.
No, Feroth, your priority cannot be the Rohirrim. Your priority must be the fate of Middle-earth. Rohan will live on in its songs and its people. You cannot be small-minded. You cannot put the lives of one group of men above the fate of the world.
I made a promise to fight in defense of the Horse Lord's lands. I cannot break my word and abandon them to death.
If Isengard falls, then all is lost. And they are dead anyways.
Faroth looks furious for a moment. He thought this was going too easily. And he rests his hands upon the balustrade and watches as the Dunlendings fire another volley into the straw men, impact after impact. And for a second, he sees the faces of the riders of Rohan, them falling down in piles of straw.
Certainly, the arrows have hit a lot of the straw men in the head, and the straw has become untangled, and they look like straw hair. The straw hairs, which inspires the Dunlendings to even more aggression against their targets. You can see the old rivalries in their practice. But
we do not know what fate will befall us when the sun next rises. Or indeed again. I will fight to the best of my ability, and I will do everything I can to halt the march of the Easterlings and to salvage Rohan.
And if a choice must be made, will you be able to make it?
Faroth just gives Anariel one last look before then saying, Beregond, make your preparations. We leave soon. And he will start to do just that.
Beregond goes and speaks to the sort of instructors and gives his final instructions and sort of points at a few individual bowmen that he's noticed and sort of praising them, and then goes off and he gathers up his things, gathers up food, and says, I will be here in no time, he says, and dashes off.
Yeah, one of the Dunlendings, or two or three of them are kicking around one of the straw heads and like chuckling. And then one of them like throws a spear and it like thunk, again, like seems to for a moment give that impression of the straw hair. As they continue, they're exceptional with javelins, with skirmishing in general. Better than anyone you've seen at this particular thing. And they don't seem overly worried. There's a sort of difference in the way that they seem to approach war. Like it's a bit joyful and a bit exciting, as opposed to like the grim faces of like Gondorians who have had to sit in Osgiliath for years fighting. To them, it's like a chance to have a scrap and a bit of adventure. And maybe there's a difference in the culture there as well. Okay, so as I understand it, Faroth and Beregond are going to take the Dunlendings that are here now, the roughly 2,000 or so, and they're going to go to the back of the glittering caves and try and get into Helm's Deep that way. And then Nariel and Glindair are going to wait here for more Dunlendings, or you're going to go to Isengard?
I think to Isengard.
Okay.
And the Dunlendings, if they muster another force, can join at Helm's Deep.
Okay. And it's up to you when you want to leave. If you want to do something else while you're still here, do so.
Glyndar would find Faroth later that night, I think. Maybe.
Are we staying the night? Well, anyway, go on.
Oh, no. We're preparing and leaving now, are we?
That's what I thought.
Yeah, makes sense. Of course. So he would then quite shortly after that find Faroth, as Faroth is maybe preparing his horse and all of his gear. King Faroth, a word, if I may.
Faroth pauses for a moment and he says, "Speak, Glendaia."
The blood of the Dunedain flows through your veins. You live longer than these folk. He gestures to the Dunlending around, and even the Rohirrim and the Gondorians. My sister and I, our kin, we live far longer. We have seen and lived through many ages, many lives of men. Anariel was 500 years of age when Eol was born. She had lived 10 lifetimes of these people when Eol became Lord of the Eothered at 16 and tamed Felarov, first of the Meras. I myself was centuries old at the birth of Helm Hammerhand. It may seem at times that we do not understand the plight of men. But the plight of men is intertwined with the plight of Middle-earth, which in turn is entwined with the plight of our people who are leaving these shores, Faroth. Anariel and I, we will not leave. Our purpose is different. Our purpose is intertwined with your own. And yes, he pauses as a young Dunlending comes and adjusts the strap on your horse, and then sort of gives your horse a pat on the haunches, and then gives us both a nod and moves away. And Glinda gives him a smile and a nod, and then when he's out of earshot again, these people, the Dunlendings, the Rohirrim, they're part of Middle-earth, you see. Sometimes sacrifices must be made, and sometimes not all can be saved. For the fate of many. Do you see my meaning?
Faroth does not break your gaze. Whether one would live for mere decades or centuries, in this time we stand the same, but we may all die in the days to come. But to let that happen when the battle still hangs in the balance, while the choice can still be made, I cannot do that, Glendair.
I do not ask you to throw away your life or those of the lives of those who follow you. And Glendair is very mindfully thinking through his mind. How would an Ariel be acting? Don't be rash. Be calm and measured. And he pauses while he thinks. We will follow you to any end, Faroth. As I say, it is our purpose. Think on how far we have come. He pauses for a moment to let those words and the weight of the centuries behind these two individuals hang in the air and hit home for you.
The weight of these decisions, they hang upon me. And sometimes I feel like all I can do is just crawl my hands in the dirt. And I can hear through the earth great movements of armies, of cultures and people. Not all of these things are for us to decide. I can only do what I can with what I have. It has got me this far. It has got us this far. I cannot fall back on that now. You must trust me.
You have my trust, King Faroth. And as you crawl, you may find yourself lifted from the dirt by those who love you and those who follow you. And at that, he would just give a nod and a squeeze on your shoulder, and move away with a sweep of his cloak.
Faroth watches him go for a moment, looks down, he rests his forearm against the saddle of his trusted steed. Then he looks into the beast's eyes, and then resolute mounts up.
So, are you going to take all of the Dunlendings that have mustered so far? Is that the idea? Is about 2,000-ish. Might be a tight squeeze in the caves.
I was going to say, with Faroth's sort of ranging expertise, like leading sort of fighting forces, but in under the guise of stealth, like I'm pretty sure he might know that 2,000 people might be difficult to conceal.
Yeah, I think what you could try and do is choose the Dunlendings who are like more elite, more trained, and Dunlendings often fight at night, often like raid at night, things like that, and are relatively adept at raiding and like secret fighting and stuff like that in a way that like Rohirrim and Gondorians would think is like dishonorable. But it's how you win if you don't have, steel and whatever else. So
I think Faroth would have gone to the Dunlendings that they had encountered on their climb to Mithadras, because he'd been they'd been dauntless and had hunted them, and not many people are able to hunt us these days. So they must be pretty good. So I think he'd probably rely on the Dunlendings he knows.
Yeah, that's Caird Wolf.
Yes.
Who you had met before. And he would be one of he'd be trained in like hunting, scouting, raiding, that kind of thing. I think it's a decision of how many you want to bring. I think you can like reasonably, because you're not going to be very near the Easterlings. It's more a question of like, can you fit 2,000 people through a cave complex? Is more the issue. So I think you could take like a couple hundred reasonably and move across land, and then relatively slowly through the caves. It's just a question of if you bring like 10 guys, then it doesn't really add much to the force there, you know. So there's a balance that you have to strike, I think, between a good number of sneaky people and enough number to make a difference when the charge happens.
I think Faroth would remember words that he himself had uttered, arguably a less wise Faroth, in preparation for the battle against Gundabad, once saying he would take 100 in with him.
Mm-hmm.
And his mind falls on that number. I think 100 of the best will serve. Yeah.
So you'll grab 100 of the more elite Dunlendings, Cardwolf among them, and that's enough as well for them all to be mounted, so you can move pretty quickly. And begin rushing across the landscape down south towards Aglarond, which is that little bit that she was trying to get, but you didn't give away, of Gondor. Connects to the White Mountains there, and there is a path through the back of those mountains that leads into the Glittering Caves, or the Caves of Glory. So moving across the land is easy. You have a bunch of Dunlendings who are adept at ranging, traveling. You yourself are an expert at this, and it's not like there's no Easterlings this far across, because they're focused on Helm's Deep, and so you can move, and in the guts of like a day and a half, you can arrive at the White Mountains, and then it's a question of finding this entrance and where that might be. You don't have an exact location, because even Saruman just knows that there are caves, doesn't know where they go necessarily. So it's just a matter of time before you find it with this many people who are skilled.
Well, I think Faroth would probably look to Beragon and say, "You've heard many stories of shining trinkets. Do you know one about a glittering cave?"
The glittering caves, certainly, the glittering caves are one of the most famous refuges of the Rohirrim, and from what I remember, there's a story. The best known entrance is from Helm's Deep. There is a story, if I remember well, of you can only see there's another entrance in a high valley that can only be reached by climbing and ropes, from what I remember. There was once in the story I heard, there's a stunted ash growing out of a cliff, and you had to attach the ropes to that to get up and down to the rear entrance. But who knows? This is an old story. The ash might have fallen out of that cliff, and we might need to find another way. We may not find that ash, but it's the only thing I have to go on from my memories.
Okay, excellent. I love it. Will you give me a survival, Faroth?
Yep, sure thing.
You can have advantage for all of the many Dunlendings who know the land.
Oh, excellent. The survival. Cool. Uh, 24.
You spend. You arrive at night. You spend.
Yeah.
You go.
there may be ash is a common tree in these parts, and there may be many ashes trying to grow out of a tree. But this one was a famous rendezvous place of an old love between a Rohirrim and a Gondorian lady, if I remember right, Orthel, and they carved their initials onto the bark of the tree, and hammered a piece of mithril into the heart, and that on a moonlit night you might be able to catch a glimpse of that mithril.
There's a few false starts as Dunlendings sort of spot ash trees here and there, and then like sort of try and outdo each other with how quickly they can climb. They're not using ropes; they're just like literally climbing as quick as they can. They do this for fun often, and they get to the tree and they're like looking for like some sort of scratch or something, and then they'll sort of like and it's not the right one, and this will go on for a few hours.
Aragorn can't resist. Once he's spotted who the fastest is, he's got the fastest one. As he's zooming up, he's going to be met by Baragond, relaxing at the destination when he gets there.
It's Adon, who's like a youth with like a long mustache that he's got braided. When he like gets to the top, he's like extremely pleased with himself. And when like look down at the others and then like see you, and then sort of turn his head and like point behind you. And when you go to look, he'll shove you and see if he can push you off the tree. So playfully rather than aggressively, but nonetheless, I don't think you will, since you can stick to trees and whatnot. So maybe there's even a funny scene where you like whoop and just are upside down on the tree, and he gives up all hope of it. Let's see. So it'll be 2 hours of searching through these like tight little ravines and wandering up and down and looking at these ash trees that like cling crag-like to these cliffs and things, until finally, relatively high up, there's one, and there's a feeling of confidence. It's higher up than the others that have been seen so far, and climbing up Baragond, you'll be able to beat Adon there again, and you'll see that just as you imagine that there is this like carving, it's almost entirely weathered away, but there is a glint of metal there within the tree.
It's ingenious. The mithril would be a front to orcish eyes that would unknowingly choose to avoid the mark.
Leading from it, you can kind of climb up using ropes and whatnot so that everyone can get up. You can follow this like very, very tight path, and at one stage you're walking on this like barely foot wide like rocks that have been like hammered or like placed or have grown or something, and the side of this, so you're holding onto the rock and like moving sideways until finally you can see an opening ahead. It's not a huge wide opening. It doesn't signpost the fact that there are caves here, but you could squeeze through it if you were determined, and you are. And so you begin to again like sideways like shuffle your way through, and there's like of like swords that are scraping against rock and things like that as you finally push your way through into this like loud echoing chamber. You can hear from every breath, and the drips of water all over, though it is pitch black within.
I'm guessing Faroth will lead the way, but Baragond, with his able to climb like a spider over the walls, will be helping the Dunlendings when there's a particularly difficult sort of bit of a climb, bit of a difficult and dangerous bit of move. He'll be in those places to give a hand to help, basically avoiding accidents on the way. So he'll be probably in the last. Faroth will be at the front, and Baragond will be the last to enter the caves. And as he's about to enter, he the last time he was in caves was going into Methedras, where they found the ring, and there's a little sort of shiver goes down his spine, and he finds it disconcerting again to go in. He hears some vague whisper of black speech that he doesn't understand, but he still recognizes it in the back of his head. But he dismisses it and dismisses it. He doesn't believe it. He thinks it's just a memory, not anything worse than that, and goes in.
When you light a torch, it's like a star is born in this cave, and it is so bright. There are veins of metal ore all over, and it looks like just actual stones, gemstones in the walls of this place. And the light catches strangely and like bounces these like strange prismatic lights in various directions as you move with the torches through this place. You've never seen anything like this. And you've been in Gundabad and you've been in Methedras and other places, but it's insane to you that dwarves don't live here. So you can begin moving through these caves, and it's clear to you as well that they have been like shaped. Once you're in through that gap, there is a path. It's not an easy path, but there is one, which would be unusual for caves that are natural. You'd never find just a path running around. But you're able to follow this path and the Dunlendings with you, moving quietly. But it'll be a good bit of travel before you arrive in Hell itself. In Isengard, the elves have ridden and have made it to back to the fortress of Orthanc. And as you arrive inside, you can see that others have arrived as well. Notably, the Dunedain have come. You wouldn't have met these people, but they're led by a man called Arahad, who has come, and there are a great many of them. Here, as well as that, the forces that would have been on the way from Gundabad forever ago have arrived, which means that there are a great many more dwarves and elves that have arrived. Thranduil is not here. His apologies are given by his son, who is here, and he gives the apologies to say that there is trouble also in Mirkwood, and that his father must remain to protect it. But there are some of the Mirkwood elves here as well, gathering unlike anything you've seen in terms of how many people are here, and from all parts of Middle-earth.
I think as they come in, Nariel is scanning, and her mind is estimating numbers of fighting forces and weighing those against the numbers they've heard about. And she thinks perhaps it will be enough. But they must find Lord Elrond and tell him of their plan for Helm's Deep.
You can sweep through the gardens, which have mostly been repurposed at this stage to become various levels of defense. So there would have been beautiful gardens of trees, ancient trees here, but they have been unfortunately removed to make defense in depth, so that if they make it through the first walls, that there will be second walls and third walls and various levels, so that you can hold for as long as possible. And so a lot of the beauty of Isengard that you would have admired is gone, and it's become a fortress more than anything else. You can sweep through and up the great stairs into the tower itself, and begin the ascent. Sending message to say you wish to speak to Lord Elrond, who will meet you in the table, the gigantic black stone table. And when you arrive there, he'll be sitting, and he'll have his head in his hand, as is frequently the case, rubbing at his forehead. Ever troubled is Lord Elrond.
And Ariel sees that and remembers some of Galadriel's words, and then we'll set them aside. Lord Elrond, I would take forces to Helm's Deep, if you grant it.
Why?
There are, by the count of the Dunlendings, some 10,000 Easterlings there.
What forces will you take to defeat 10,000 Easterlings? They're not needed here to protect the ring.
The bulk of Sauron's forces are not yet imminent. We can take warriors. We can scatter the Easterlings. Perhaps even rescue the Rohirrim and return. And in doing so, we will prevent the Easterlings from joining with Sauron's forces to besiege Isengard.
Warriors I have brought from Imladris are the Noldor, some of the most ancient and powerful warriors in all of Middle-earth. They are storied and historied, and I will not throw them meaninglessly against Easterlings to save what strength remains of Rohan. One loss of one of these warriors is unthinkable to me. Tragedy. Memories of 10,000 years would be lost for the price of horse lords.
Forgive me, Lord Elrond, you seem to have misunderstood me. My goal is not to save Rohan. That is perhaps a secondary outcome. If we do not destroy these Easterlings now, while they are unreinforced by orcs and whatever else Sauron is sending, then they will be a greater threat later. This is our best chance.
These Rúnadain, Lord Elrond, will march upon Isengard. Why not meet them and break them early?
Because we have the greatest fortress in Middle-earth, and we are within it, and we have a great many archers.
And
I know that you are young, but perhaps you don't understand siegecraft. The point of a fortress is that to remain within it.
I'm sorry, my cat is like sneezing over here and I don't know what's happening. Okay. Lord Elrond, we would certainly return to the fortress, but you must understand the Dunlendings report that the Easterlings have already been building weaponry, which could then be brought towards Isengard.
There is one thing that you are not, it is certain, to return. You cannot know that. What happens if you...
And you cannot know that if we stay here, the Easterlings will not come and break down the walls with their siege machines, the things that they build with the wood and the iron. You cannot know that it is safer to stay here than it is to ride out and meet them. Lord Elrond.
Indeed. Which one of us is Lord? You are young and filled with fire. I understand that. And you think that this great sacrifice, this noble attempt to destroy the enemy will somehow change the outcome for the better, and that this will be a glorious victory, and in this we will start the tide of victories against Sauron. But I have fought Sauron before. What we need to do is hold and wait and unforge the ring. That is the only way that we achieve victory. Only way that we can defeat him. The Noldor, these warriors of mine, are too precious to waste in this exchange. Perhaps there are other commanders here who would grant you their troops. One cannot speak for them. But I will not provide warriors from Imladris for this folly. We must focus on the greater task, which is the savior of all Middle-earth. And I know you think that you are doing that. But I do not see it that way. Perhaps the dwarves will help you. They like to fight. Or the elves of Mirkwood. But from Imladris there will be no sally forth.
It is unfortunate that we come to value our own lives and their length far more than the shorter lives. A memory is no less precious because it has but 50 years.
It is kind that you believe that. And it speaks well to your warmth. But there are a few of us left, Nario. Fewer still in Middle-earth. And to lose a friend that I have known for 5,000 years is a heartbreak that I do not want to face.
With respect, Lord Elrond, I fear that is a heartbreak you may face in the shadow of Isengard, all the same. But as you say, we shall speak with other commanders, and we shall represent Imladris and her fury.
Very good. And he'll stand. Go.
And Arya lets out the breath she was holding. Thank you, Glendair.
He puts a hand on your shoulder. Been spending your temper threatens to boil like my own.
There is a fondness in my heart for these men that we have come to know and we have fought with. And it rankles me so to see them considered less for the shortness of their lives. You did well. Come. We must find another.
As did you, he says, as we turn to walk and find another. And he would speak as we walk and look. He would speak of, by way of reminder, that Lord Elrond was there when the strength of men failed, when Isildur failed to cast the ring into the fires of Mount Doom, and he is older far even than us. Well, I mean, I don't think we would even see it in that perspective. We would know that we're young for elves, so yeah. And I suppose we'll try and find son of the Woodland Realm, the Prince of the Woodland Realm, or one of the Dwarven commanders.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat there. There's Arahad of the Dunedain, who has arrived. There's Thorin, Oakenshield of the Blue Mountains. There's King Gurney Firebeard, Legolas of the Woodland Realm, and Galadriel of Lothlorien, who all have different forces. Ostensibly, Elrond is the Grand Commander of the forces here. He's like the Commander-in-Chief of this force. He has the most military experience, maybe of anyone who exists in Middle-earth. But like, you would not be surprised if the dwarves were like, yeah, we'll go, whatever. You know, or if you could convince them sort of personally that there'd be a difference to be made. Yeah.
All right. We'll have a little quick meta chat. Who do you guys think would be good to try and convince? 'Cause I feel like getting the Dunedain would be no problem. But I don't know if they'd be better suited for waiting at Isengard or...
They could probably move quickly with us overland to get to Helm's Deep. And yeah, I think it's likely that they would join us because we want, unlike... Yeah, exactly. Unlike Baragon and Faroth needing to carefully consider the amount of forces they took by the way they were going, we want as many as we can get, really, without weakening too much the forces defending here. So the heavier the hammer that will fall against the anvil, the better. So some Dunedain. I think of Thorin and King Gurney, Firebeard, I think King Gurney is maybe more likely to help.
Thorin is known to be relatively careful, yeah.
Yeah.
There's also Saruman has his own army of men who live in Isengard and the surrounds. Potentially you could talk with him as well.
I'd say they'd be best served defending their home and the
Are there any cavalry, because they are of the least use in defending a stronghold and most effective in sort of moving fast and hitting hard.
Yes.
Do the Dunedain all have horses?
So the Dunedain are split about 50-50 between Rangers, who are excellent at ranged combat as well as like close combat, and the other half would be like Knights of Arnor. That tradition still exists there, like heavily armored knights. There would also be cavalry among the Galadrim, who are the people from Lothlorien. Elvish cavalry, who are horseback archers and fighters.
Those are the two, I reckon.
Yeah, let's talk to Arahad and Galadriel.
The Dunedain. Do we want to try for some dwarves too? What do you think? To like help tank?
See how we go after speaking to Arahad and Galadriel, maybe.
Yeah. And Lloyd, I'm fine if we want to montage that or play that out either way.
Yeah, we'll have to play it out, I think. You'll have to convince them.
Okay. Oh no.
Like, I mean, they've all been given the mission of like, okay, the ring is literally here, we have to protect it or Middle Earth is destroyed. And then you have to come and tell them, actually, can we just borrow your troops, people you love, to go and fight the Easterlings and save the couple hundred Rohirrim that remain.
Found a different hill for you to die
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That just happens, right?
You also have the Dunedain who are no, the Dunlendings who are coming. You know, like they will be arriving.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's a question of when exactly they arrive.
So I guess in terms of the persuasion, it's like us and 5,000 maybe Dunlendings are going.
Yeah, the Queen had
Will
said
you
that
join
it
us?
will be 6,000.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
But that'll take a day or two, another 2 days, from where you are
Yeah.
now.
So maybe that's the angle. Like us and 6,000 Dunlendings are going. Will you join us because we need you?
Okay, let's take our break here, and you can formulate your approach. And I'll think about what these people might say to that, and we'll come back in a sec. Okay. So you find yourself in Orthanc, and there are any people you could speak to if you were so inclined. What's the plan?
We will seek out first the commander of the Dunedain, Erahad.
Yeah, so you can wander back outside, and they're sort of camped within the second wall. There aren't like many permanent structures. Like Orthanc is not a castle in traditional sense. It's a big circular wall and then a big tower. There's no other buildings really, and so things have been going up. Camps have been being built and stuff like that to prepare for what's coming. And so the Dunedain mostly are camped there. And you can move freely around Isengard. It's clear that everyone who's in here is supposed to be. They're pretty confident through the various magics that are involved that no agent of the shadow is within. And so you can move through the Dunedain camp and find your way to Arahad, who is within his tent. It's more like a pavilion, I suppose. And there's a couple of other Dunedain in here with him, and he'll like look up at your entrance and stand. Hello, welcome. What can I do for you?
That remains to be seen.
Never a promising start. Have a seat.
Thank you. First, we bring news of Feroth, son of Fadrid, who, as we speak, is approaching Helm's Deep from a secret entrance.
Typical.
He has with him a small force, and they will muster what is left of the Rohirrim inside and lead out a charge.
Against the Easterlings?
10,000 Easterlings besiege Helm's Deep. My brother and I intend to go with a force of 6,000 Dunlendings.
That's brave.
Will you aid us?
Not really supposed to.
If the Easterlings are not destroyed at Helm's Deep and scattered to the wind, then they will set upon Isengard along with the rest of Sauron's host. This is our best chance.
$10,000. We'd heard that Edoras has been destroyed. Is that so?
It is. And the strength of Rohan has fallen back to Helm's Deep. They are all that is left.
Strength they do have yet behind those walls.
My people have been living in a Numinas and have fortified it into something it is not supposed to be. Beautiful city, or it was a beautiful city, and now it is a fortress. It's not a fate that I would wish on others. I have seen my people pushed back and back and back. See it happen to Rohan.
If we do not help them, there will be no Rohan left.
Lord Elrond will not be pleased.
Lord Elrond has given me leave to speak to other commanders. He himself would not spare any archers.
And that too is expected. Well, you can count on us.
We are most thankful. I had not expected. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Lindo looks over at Anariel like unsure whether this was too easy, right? Like after the discussion with Lord Elrond. But he just sort of gives you that look. You'd know what that means.
Maybe you think of the conversation that you had with Galadriel about hope, and that men have maybe more of it. That they're more willing to like risk for gain and sacrifice for hope than others maybe in Middle Earth. And he seems just determined and not even particularly fazed at the thought that this could be it. It has to be done. It's his duty.
I intend to speak with others and see who else might join us, that we can put an end to these Easterlings, rescue the Rohirrim, and then return to defend Isengard. I believe it can all be done before Sauron's forces arrive.
Yes, we should hope so. I've sent men east to give advance warning of when that host arrives. We should move quickly nonetheless.
Agreed. What was our timeline? Was it 1 day or 2 days? I've forgotten.
It'd be, 2 days basically from when you arrived at Isengard for the Dunlendings to arrive.
The Dunlendings will be here in 2 days, and then we will go straight to Helm's Deep.
Understood. I'll make the preparations.
Thank you, Erhard.
What else could man do?
It is with great pride that I consider Faroth, son of Fardred, a friend. It will be an honor to ride alongside you and your men.
It'll be worth it for the look in his face.
And Ariel has a brief moment where she considers telling him that Feroth is king. She's unsure if that news has reached Isengard. But when he says it would be worth it for the look on Feroth's face, she wonders if Feroth might want to see the look on Arahed's face and thinks better of it. So Nariel will stand and incline her head and then take leave. And I guess we'll go find Galadriel next.
So out of the Dunedain encampment and back up the stairs, up many, many, many stairs, into the chamber where the ring is, the smithy. You can see that it's changed pretty drastically since you've last been here. There are like various plinths that have been arrayed around it, and strange stones sit upon many of them. Something is happening here, something magical and beyond your understanding. And Saruman is so busy that he doesn't even look up at your arrival. He's like looking over some tome and like flipping through it, and he's reading every page at a speed at which should be impossible. And he's like absorbing the book quickly, and occasionally he like mutters something, writes something, or like picks up a certain stone or some object and like seems to chant something. Something is happening there. And in a similar vein, all around, dwarves are like hammering and creating things. The ring itself is like within several layers of protection, and is like placed upon a dais at the center of the room. And Galadriel sits at the same table as Saruman, sort of going through a similar process, like working hard at some magic.
Nariel hesitates, unsure if she should disturb them. She looks to Glendair.
Kind of gives a bit of a shrug, like she's not going to get less busy.
I know why you've come, he says.
And Ariel is like slightly startled.
And she'll like close the book and slide to the side and look up at the two chairs in which you are clearly supposed to be sitting.
Yes, we will sit.
Tell me.
We will go to Helm's Deep with Dunlendings and with the Dunedain. The Feroth and Baragond, they are going another way. The Rohirrim will ride out and we will catch the Easterlings between us. My hope is that we can scatter them to the wind, so that they cannot then beset Isengard. And the Rohirrim might be saved.
It is a curious thing. Men do not think twice or help each other. When times are most desperate, even the Dunlendings will help their enemies.
And elves?
Cannot blame Lord Elrond for his. He has lived through too many tragedies. And he thinks, perhaps correctly, there is a greater battle. And it is here. This is the most important thing, that the entire doom of Middle-earth rests here in this room. That every life, every elf, man and dwarf, be given to protect it. So that there can be a Middle-earth hereafter. That is how Elrond thinks.
And then you know my thoughts, lady. That if 10,000 Easterlings join with the forces of Sauron, then the lives here within are more at risk.
The question that plagues Lord Elrond and himself and others is, those lives are lost out there. Will it mean that there is one moment less that we can hold here? What if that is the moment in which we unforge the ring? What if it is one life makes the difference? We cannot know. Caution is our way. Think. Must consider every avenue, every approach.
My lady, I take your meaning. And my mind goes to this question: what if it is one Easterling life, one Runadine warrior, that tips the scales in the shadow of Orthanc?
That too is a possibility. By which I mean I am uncertain of what is to come. Caution would dictate that we wait here, behind these walls. Perhaps one life can tip the balance against 2 or 5 or 10.
You know better than we, he says, gesturing to himself and Ariel seated in these fine chairs. That our people are leaving these shores. Those who remain will be men. Future ages of this Middle Earth will either be for that of Sauron and his ilk, or of the men of the West. Should we not take heart from those men who stand to inherit the world and throw a small measure of caution to the wind and fight for hope?
What if, when the ring is destroyed and Sauron's power has waned, that the men of the East find themselves free of shackles that have kept them imprisoned for thousands of years and been deceived? And we have killed 10,000 of them.
Glinda sits back in his chair at that, struck profoundly by the thought.
There are more considerations than we have time for. I see that you want to make a difference, and you want to make a difference now. Dunlendings are going with you, and that is the way of men. Dunlendings are going with you. And so you are committed. So now if I do not help, I am hindering. Shrewd.
Your decision is your own, lady, and we mean only to convince you, not entrap you.
Well, your meaning is somewhat irrelevant in Ariel because you have trapped me, and if I do not send my warriors with you, and you die, and the Dunlendings die, and the Dindine die, then I have, through inaction, caused that to happen. And so if I cannot cause myself to not help, then I must help. So help I will.
You will. Thank you, lady. If you give us the name, then we will speak to the commander.
Barthoniel is captain of the Galadrim. You can speak to him. Say that he has my permission to do what he thinks is right.
And Ariel kind of smiles at the shrewdness of Galadriel and giving permission without an order. We will do so. And if the stars shine, then we will return.
It will be a dark night. Keep your eyes at the stars. May they light you.
will kind of like do the bow, the very reverential bow, and stand and leave, and Galadriel and Saruman to their work.
Yeah, as you leave, Saruman sort of looks up from his book with like an eyebrow at Galadriel, who sort of like smiles and shakes her head and looks back at her book.
Okay, what was the name? Gwenadiel?
I've got it in the doc.
Orthoniel.
Orthoniel and the Galadriel. Oh, Gwarthoniel.
Okay, I guess I gotta go talk to him now.
Yeah, so he will assist.
Okay.
Permission from Galadriel is an order from Galadriel, basically.
Yeah.
Although it's not phrased that way. If she says, use your best judgment, it means do what I say. Okay, so...
How many Galadrim then do we reckon?
I'll have to think about exact numbers.
That's all right.
But plenty. Plenty of elven cavalry, which is huge. But yeah, I'll think about exact numbers and stuff, but you'll be probably at the end of this, like sitting at about 8,000. Beneath the glittering caves, you've been walking for the best part of maybe 4 or 5 hours through these caves, and you're passing through like these amazing caverns. Like, they have a couple of torches lit, and again, everywhere there are ores, veins of ore, and other things like that here, and just gems that are like in the walls. And these like beautiful like stalactites and mites that like some of them join to make columns and others don't. You pass through and over bridges that are that span these like massive chasms, and but here and there are stairs that have been carved into places, and there's definitely a path that has been made so that you can make your way there. Really, that you can make your way out of here if you were stuck.
Indeed, Beregond, I find that we spend half of our time beneath mountains in days of late. Durin's folk would be proud.
Yes. I think I'm growing a beard, he says.
Well, if I had to be underground, I'm glad it is in caves such as these. I believe we draw close.
Sorry, I missed what you said.
Farrell just said he believes that they draw close to their destination. I wonder how many remain, says Faroth.
When we approach, we should go on ahead, because the arrival of their traditional enemy at their back might be taken badly by the Rohirrim survivors. We'll need to tread cautiously.
You move ahead for some time, and eventually you can hear noise ahead of people moving and of hushed tones and voices. The nature of these caverns is that everything carries, so you're not sure exactly how far ahead, but definitely you're approaching people.
Beregond turns in sort of gestures for Aidan and Caerdwulf to stop and sort of shield their lanterns and their lights, so they're not sort of shining down the corridor that we're hearing from. And then he kind of turns to Faroth and, with body language, poses the question, shall I go or you?
I believe Your words are true, Berigond. We should approach without the Dunlendings. I think we can trust them to remain whilst we go ahead together.
Yeah. Before they leave, Berigond turns to the Dunlendings and with Aidan, he turns to Aidan and points at some of the jewels in the wall and warns him not to steal any, and then goes off.
Yeah, he gives you this nod of like, okay. You're pretty sure that as soon as you're out of sight, he'll take
he's got his eyes on. I've got my eyes on you, braided snout, and he says, and before heading off to meet the Rohirrim.
You move down this corridor. Corridor's the wrong word. This path in the cavern, and you can see that it curves around, and that there's a deliberate room, to the right, and that's where you think the noise is coming from. Can you both give me a perception check?
Oh, yes, certainly. Not great, I don't think. 12.
17.
Okay, so then Baragon, you notice at the last second you can hear this like shuffle, this brief little noise, and then an old man, must be in his 70s, and an old woman, similarly aged, jump out and shout and have axes in their hands, and like go to strike, and then see that you're not Easterlings. Who are you? Back!
Baragon, son of Beren, and this is Faroth, son of Fardred. We are allies of Rohan, and sent by and we bring allies. Birka, doorkeeper of Edoras, Eofred, the Falcon, Wulfric of the Entwash, or Ethelhelm, can all testify to who we are and recognize us.
Yeah, the old man seems extremely relieved not to have to fight you. And will sort of like sink a little bit. Help. We did not anticipate help from anyone.
When Faroth swears an oath, he lives up to it. He swore to Queen Morwen and Steelsheen, if she still, that he would aid the people of Rohan, and we do what we can. But we need to speak to your leaders, or one of your leaders.
They'll be in the Hornburg.
Can you spare somebody to lead us?
Yeah, look passes between them, and the woman nods, and she'll come with you. And she'll sort of step into the corridor and say, "Just two of you?"
No. 100. But they are waiting. They are waiting in the caves. But they are unexpected allies, and it is best to prepare, best to warn. They are Dunlendings come to fight for. They are Dunlendings come to fight for Rohan. He says, and stops, looking at the lady and old man to see how their reaction goes to that bit of news.
Yeah, they look like they've been deceived. Dunlendings.
Yes.
But they hate us.
They hate orcs more.
The burning of the Golden Hall has unified them to us. They no more wish to see the end of days than do the people of Rohan. Now, please, to your commanders.
I'll pass by here before I go, he says, 70 years old and determined to stand guard at the door before any Dunlending is left behind.
Okay.
As you will it. Yeah, we'll give the order then. Sorry, unless Baragon, you have something else to say?
Are you... He turns to these two people. Are you authorized to permit 100 people into 100 armed people into Helm's Deep, or would you prefer to have one of your leaders come here?
There is no deception meant. The Dunlendings, understandably, hold back from walking under the threshold.
You can see that there's others in the room who would have come forward, women and just older people as well, and they're sort of standing now behind the two old people. Some with axes, some with just clubs or knives or whatever, sort of standing ready and worried at the idea that Dunlendings are going to pass by here.
Call. Do not let them pass. Call for Birka, call for Earfrid, call for Wulfric of the Entwash, or call for Ethelhelm of Edoras. And let us speak with one of them. Or Queen Morwen, if she still lives and rules.
She does.
You are guarding the rear entrance to Helm's Deep well, but this decision needs to be taken by one of your leaders.
Yeah, she'll call to one of the youths. He's maybe 12, and he'll stand there, and she'll say, "Go and get Ethelhelm." And he'll nod with a very serious face, like he's been given an important mission, and will run barefoot out into the cave and out into the fortress itself. How did you convince Dunlendings to help us?
Forgive me. Oh.
There will be time for the whole story to be apparent, but the enemy is upon the doorstep, and action must be taken, and it must be taken now, unified and strong. The Dunlendings have offered help, and that for now shall be good enough.
And it was he was about to add something, but then he decides not to. But tell me, is Earfrid the Falcon, a youth still alive? He fought alongside us in the Battle of Broken Bridge.
The woman looks over her shoulder. Anyone know Eofrid the Falcon? And somebody says, "That's my boy. Yes, he's on the walls."
Excellent. Oh, he's genuinely relieved, Beragond. He's fond of Eofrid the Falcon. And is he a captain yet in the army?
No, not yet.
Well, he should be.
And maybe after this. The boy comes running back sometime later, and behind him is Ethelhelm, who looks like he hasn't slept in about 3 weeks. His beard is shaggy and in bits. His hair is almost dreadlocked in places, and he is wearing armor. He stinks. He has clearly been in the armor for too long and looks totally exhausted. And he sees the two of you and sort of wonders, what is this?
Ethelhelm, Sorry. No, he leaves you to the
Wilhelm.
forest.
We come with reinforcements and with counsel.
And hope.
Christmas. We have given up hope. We've been here for so long, and Edoras is ruined, and
we arrive early ahead of a host of Dunlendings. We are aware that they are old enemies with you, but in the face of the end of days, they have agreed to help. We understand that this will be strange and may seem wrong to you. But as I look upon you now, he says, with a look around at those assembled, we all need to unite if we're to see the next day.
I am not too proud to take help from Dunlendings or anyone who wishes to help us now in this moment at most. Though I am not every man of Rohan. And you can be sure that some of the other lords will have something to say about this. But I will speak as loudly as I can that we should be grateful for any help that has come.
What of the men of Rohan? How many of you, and he sort of realizes he's perhaps talking a little bit insensitively, how many?
Is far too few. We have scarce thousands here in the Hornburg. It was once an entire people. I have no doubt that others have escaped to different parts of Middle-earth, but nonetheless, we have no more than 2,000 here. That includes, he'll like gesture to the room behind you, which opens up into many other rooms where like the children, the old, and those who can't fight are.
There is a force of 100 of the fiercest Dunlendings at our backs within the caves. That is how we reached here. With a host of 6,000, he hopes, but he doesn't say.
6,000. He looks like a miracle has occurred. Like impossible for him to think that this could have happened. And I think he almost like falls over from it, and then catches himself. We could win. Or at least show them that there's strength in Rohan still.
Yes, he smiles. We must plan accordingly when this host arrives. It will be counting on a counter-charge from all strength that remains in Rohan.
Forgive me. Is there an attack going on at the moment? Or just...
We have repelled more than 10 attempts at the walls. The deeping wall is impenetrable, and we have made them pay. But not without cost, and now they are building machines half a mile away, if not more, well out of sight of our reach. We fear they'll begin pummeling the walls with rocks soon.
You look tired, and your men must be tired. We have 100 fresh men that we can take to the walls and give your men a few hours to of rest and time to have a bite to eat, a quick sleep, and before the next attack. Not all your men, obviously, but the 100 most in need.
Yes. That will be the idea of sleep, is you cannot imagine.
And we would discuss tactics with the Queen or whoever leads the forces here.
Yes.
But let us get the men to the walls then immediately.
Very good. Follow me then, he'll say, and he'll begin walking through. the rest of the cavern.
Let me introduce you to the men first. So you see the Dunlendings and anyway, we'll introduce him to the Dunlendings, sort of get that over if you want to roleplay, and then
there's a lot of
go to the position.
A lot of chest puffing that happens in that first meeting, and Ethelhelm, who is beyond exhaustion, suddenly seems full of strength because he's like makes himself look as big as possible and like he's not tired at all. But nonetheless, there's a brief sort of awkwardness, but then he will extend a thank you to Caird who seems sort of dumbfounded at that. And he'll bring you in.
And we insist that they shake hands and whatever sort of they have he welcomes them into. He thanks them and welcomes them into Helm's Deep. There should be also have your men have messages sent to the Rohirrim. They come in good heart and they come in with goodwill, but old feuds die hard. Let the men be hospitable and cautious in their speech and not to give offense from one side to the other.
What food we have, we can share also. The breaking of bread will ease these tensions.
Yes. Ethelhelm seems like just so relieved that he's beyond caring that they're Dunlendings. You think if you brought orcs here and they were like, yeah, we're going to help, he'd be happy. Anything. And so he'll lead them into the fortress and he'll gather the lords and explain the situation. And some of them will be outraged. Two of them will be outraged. Not surprisingly, the ones whose domains were closest to Dunland. But most of them are just delighted that there's any help coming. And even those are pleased that there is a force coming and that there might be some chance that they can break out of here and at least, if nothing else, like die well, as opposed to like dying stuck here in the castle. And yeah, you're brought before the Queen, who also looks very tired. They're not quite as exhausted as Ethelhelm. They're in the Lord's level of the tower of the Hornburg, and you can see as you kind of go to the window there, the force of the Easterlings beyond. There's this big gap basically between the wall and where their sort of ditches, palisades, and stuff like that have begun, and this like huge camp that's very orderly, like neatly laid out. There are like thoroughfares between the camps if you need to move quickly. Very organized. At least the Easterling part of it is. That's the sort of central part. On the right, when you're looking at it, so to the west, is where the Wain Riders and the Variags are, and that's much more chaotic. A lot of the wagons have just been brought to like a central point, and there's sort of spiraling out from there. It doesn't have the same like you can tell from here that there are several different armies here. You can, even from the way that they camp, it's very different. And on the east, you can see 4 Mumakil. Even at this distance, you can see them. Now they are laying down. They don't have like the howdahs on their back. But even at this distance, you can see that they're gigantic. And that's where the Haradrim are. You can also see that they are building huge trebuchets, as well as like onagers, catapults, things like that. And that's what they're at the moment. Ethelhelm would have told you that they had repelled them from the walls several times, that they would have tried to attack the walls directly, but hasn't worked for them, and so now they're resorting to this instead. So the Queen will look at you and smile. Thank you. We'd almost given up hope.
Some hope still remains, Majesty, but there is a great amount of work yet to be done. This great host that lies before us, it is strong, but it is varied. We hope to sow disarray into their ranks when our reinforcements arrive.
Well, we'll prepare everyone that can sit atop a horse so that we can ride out, help in whatever way we can.
Yes, Majesty. Farrell's going to look to Berigond. What do you make of it?
Nothing changes until the force from Dunland arrives to hit them on the side, but we must be ready to ride out the moment that we see the armies of the East reacting to an approaching army. Hopefully they will arrive unseen, but we cannot guarantee that. But we must use the moment to ride out well, because we will be outnumbered whatever happens. But basically, we must survive the siege until the relief force arrives, and then coordinate a bold attack, ride out with all our forces and hit them between the two armies. And hopefully we have left instructions for the relief army to hit them in the night, so that we can sow confusion amongst the ranks. We will the word that we gave to the relief army is Henneth Anan. When we go out, as we are battling, if in the darkness you see armed opponents, armed men, call out Henneth to them, and they will reply Anan. And that is a signal that they are allies. If we are attacking in the darkness, hopefully we can sow confusion, but not fall for the same confusion ourselves.
And we can announce to our allies of the charge. Legends speak of the Horn of Helm Hammerhand. I say it should sound in the deep once again.
She likes that and nods. That would be fitting.
Then it shall be so. But now, like you have been, we must wait.
The 2 days hence, Dunlendings, 6,000, maybe more, arrive near Isengard as the forces are amassing. You've got 1,000 heavy cavalry of Arnor in plate mail, their horses similarly barded. They have the winged helms and bright lances. And there are 500 rangers with them, who are adept at all forms of combat. And to their side is the gleaming host of Galadrim, 1,000 of those also, bedecked in golden armor in the shape of leaves, each with storied weapons, bows and spears. They are also ready, and at their head is Gwarthiel. What's his name? Gwarthiel? Gwarthoniel. Who himself is storied, and you would, being elves, know of him, that he has fought in countless battles since the Second Age. And they are arrayed as the Dunlendings arrive, and this is a huge host. And maybe it's a little intimidating, Noriel, that when they are assembled, people look to you as to what's to happen next.
Yes, that is certainly intimidating. Yeah, and Ariel feels seeing this assembled group in front of her, she feels perhaps a bit more of the weight Elrond spoke of, the weight of each life. And she can only hope that this will not be in vain, and that they will succeed, and that they will have surprise and tactics and numbers and the Rohirrim at the back. But first they have to get there. So with Glendair at her side, she will call for them to begin moving towards Helm's Deep. And she will speak closely with Gorthoniel for tactics upon their approach, hoping to catch the Easterlings by surprise and perhaps give themselves more of an advantage.
Yeah, so he's in conversation with Arahad as well, who has just spoken with scouts who have come back. And so they have a pretty good idea of what the army looks like, how it's positioned on the field and that kind of thing. There's a couple of different options as to how you want to approach this. You could try and cause chaos among the Mumakil first, cause them to like rampage. That would be devastating. Attacking the less organized camp of the Wayne Riders and stuff, that might stop like what will be a devastating charge of chariots. If that goes against you, that's very dangerous. Also worth considering is that there's a command pavilion, which is likely where the Shah is, who's the high commander of their whole army, and a lot of the leadership will be there. Siege engines are a huge problem. If you can destroy those, that would cause, or at least make it impossible for them to like take the place until they rebuild those. All of those are like decent approaches. You feel free to like talk about it as a gang if you like.
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Oh boy.
Huge concern is the Mumakil and the Wayne Riders. I'd say when we went against the Wayne Riders before, they were devastating with chariots with blades on them. They kill hundreds of people. So I would say the emphasis to be against those, the Wayne Riders and the Oliphants.
They're certainly the most difficult to fight.
If you can catch them without them moving, that would be amazing, because if they then have to flee, they might have to flee through ranks of their own men. Like, we need to basically send them into disarray as quickly as possible. I know that's easy said than done when there's quite a lot of them.
Yeah, the Mumakil and the Wayne Riders would be the biggest rock against the scissors of our cavalry. So like the siege engines, obviously we don't want them getting there and then the infantry getting in and over the walls. But the strength of Rohan and the strength of all the forces that we have here basically are in the cavalry. So evening those odds is good.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps with the command pavilion, perhaps that should be a duty for one of our best swordsmen, Glendair, to lead like a pincer movement. So one strike against the Wayne Riders, another at the Mumakil, and then like a dedicated small force to cut through the center and cut off the head of the commander.
Yeah, it's also worth considering on like a meta level where your characters will be in the fight, and that it will be like less dangerous if you're in the same place. So if you have this army, but they all have commanders and stuff. So like Arahad and Gorthoniel are both incredibly capable commanders, and if you give them orders, they will follow them as well as can be expected for like anyone in Middle Earth. So like delegate. You can't run an army by being in the middle of it all the time. You got to delegate. Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So we have Elven Archer who are also cavalry. So
what I suggest is the Elven Archers concentrate maybe flaming arrows on the horses pulling the Wainwright chariots to make the horses go mad, and sort of veer off uncontrolled amongst their own allies at a distance, hopefully, and sort of try and get rid of the chariots that way.
Javelins will be quite good against them. I know
I
that would
was
be.
thinking the Dunlendings for skirmishing with their javelins and everything. Like they'd be really good. The horses aren't armored, are they?
So
Some of them are, I think.
it depends. The Easterlings have like cataphracts, like very heavy cavalry.
Yeah.
So their horses have chainmail, basically. A little bit heavier than that even. The Haradrim have like lots of light cavalry. So like just guys with javelins. In the way of like Arab cavalry or like a Spanish cavalry. So their thing is like they don't fight you directly. They just ride away on the horse and they throw things at you and they ride away again. Javelins are probably the most effective thing you have against Mumakil because they hit harder than arrows.
Yep.
Worth considering that. But the Dunlending are like not very mobile, so if they get stomped on by Oliphants, that's not great, you know?
Yeah, I feel like they'd be sitting ducks for Mumakil to just come in and sweep with the tusks and...
Yeah.
It also depends a lot on when you attack. The Mumakil are not always standing there with like the castle in their back. Like it's bad for them and painful. So like, and they're expensive animals and take, you know, a long time to grow. So they're like mostly resting until they decide they're going to fight with them. So depending on when you attack, they might not be ready, you know?
Right, which is why we need surprise.
The Dunlendings are typically as skirmishers, then they'd strike and then move because they have to be on the run from
two
the
things
Rohan
they're good
riders.
at. Like,
So
they have really good heavy infantry who are good at sort of individual fighting because they're tribal people. So they have lots of like champions among them. Like if you think of like heavy Celtic infantry or like Huskarls or something, it's a bit like that. And then they also have like really excellent skirmishers.
Yeah.
The Gallogly.
Exactly. Yep.
yeah.
And
So, I mean, if we're catching them at night by surprise, like the horses aren't living in armor, they're not expecting any reinforcements to come for Rohan.
I mean, they're not stupid, so they will have sentries. They'll have people out to keep, like, this is an organized army. At least the Easterling part is organized.
And
so,
and it'll be a battle, so there'll be time for them to get armored up. We may be able to smash one bit of the army before the other bits. It depends where they're all placed out. If we can attack the ones who have the armored horses first, then they won't have time to armor them, and the rest can sort of. But they'd be the best ones to catch first. But they probably know that, and so they're probably in the center anyway too.
It's more, I think definitely a bonus if we can catch them if they're not armored, but I think the emphasis should be to make sure they don't get moving, because as soon as they start moving, that's when we lose control of it. I think we should try our best to hit them at night, and
I'm not worried about the sentries because we have some really excellent Dunedain Rangers who I think can do some ranging and take out some of those sentries real low key. And not set off the alarm.
Yes, but agreed. My concern is.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because before, when we faced the cataphracts before, is that what they were called? Like, at least that cavalry have been known to like rival Rohan for horse combat, aren't they? So I'm very wary about them. But I like the idea of taking the sentries out there.
Think of the Easterlings a bit like heavy Arab cavalry, or like in that like they're very heavily armored. Everyone has a bow and everyone has like close combat weapons. So they're like sort of like a Swiss Army knife situation. They're good at everything.
Great.
They're some of the best cavalry in the world, you know. Yeah, Mongol heavy cavalry, you know, like noble cavalry or something.
Damn it!
Yeah.
Oh, they're so hard to fight.
They are, yeah. Turns out there are whole empires if you go east, you know.
I think that's the best we're going to get. If we catch them unawares, then that is a hefty bonus. If they don't get to like put the armaments upon the Oliphants, that's a bonus, because my other worry is if they get those close enough to the wall, they'll be on the walls before we can even because they're fast. They can move across land like nobody's business, so they could get people on the walls, and then they're behind us.
And I think kind of our initial plan was the correct approach, where we know the Wayne Riders are the most dangerous to our cavalry, and the Mumakil are the most dangerous, period. And the command tent is what's keeping everyone organized. So maybe, I don't know, we're not going to have time to save Rohan this session. I just don't think it's happening. So maybe in the next couple weeks we can do some plotting in our chat. Because I know we're getting kind of late for you, Lloyd. And
it's midnight now. I would like it if we could decide on a plan and then start next session with initiative. You know,
I think the last word on this plan should be the elves. They should fully decide. No. I think it's only right that they make the final say.
Yeah. Well, you're there.
Because we're kind of responding to what they do.
Exactly. Yeah. But yes, I think you're right. I think Wayne Riders and the Oliphants are the main concern. You hit them hard before they get to act, and send a strike into the command pavilion to destroy their leadership, hopefully before they're able to get the defense going. And then by that time, hopefully, Rohan will have answered.
Okay, so tell me where the Galadrim are going. Are they going to mess with the Wayne Riders, or are they going to mess with the Mumakil?
I think the Mumakil. You reckon? I think maybe we have the Galadrim. Just putting it in the doc here. Galadrim against the Mumakil. Dunedain Rangers against the Sentries.
that's just to start, though. The Rangers are going to be...
They'll have to be in the battle as well, so that's another question of what they do. So basically you have 4 forces at the moment. You've got the Galadrim, the Knights of Arnor, the Dunedain Rangers, and the Dunlendings.
Yeah. Yep, so I think Galadrim with the Mumakil, Dunedain Rangers, maybe they can, we'd want some cavalry. So maybe then the Knights of Arnor, maybe to...
I think the Galadrim against the, going in for the first charge against the Wayne Riders, and like Rob was suggesting, if we can kind of take them out, and like Caius was suggesting, like maybe flaming arrows or something to basically keep the Wayne Riders from becoming effective. So if we catch them by surprise first, we can keep them from becoming a very deadly
if you personally are gonna go for the command tent, then the Knights seem like the best option to bring you with you, because they can heavily charge, and if they get off their horses, they're still excellent fighters.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Arnor Knights with us.
The command tent.
Cool. So then we've got the Dunedain Rangers and the Dunlendings.
Dunedain could be the ones that, once they've taken out... Sorry, I know I'm adding, but this is the last thing I'm going to add. I think the Dunedain, once they've taken out the sentry, should be the ones to then light the arrows to shoot down at the Wayne Riders, whilst whoever you want to go attack the Wayne Riders are closing the distance. That way they're hit with flaming arrows, and then they're struck by another force.
Struck by the Galadrim. Yeah, awesome.
You have 6,000 Dunlendings, so you don't have to put them all in one place.
So we can, can split them for sure. Yeah.
I was thinking we probably want a good chunk, because that's the thing, is we have so many of them. If we concentrate enough of them around the Mumakil while they're down and unarmored and stuff, they should be able to hopefully take them out before they do much damage.
I mean, the best case scenario for you is that they do tons of damage, but they get up and they run away from the Dunlendings into the camp.
Yes.
That's the best.
That would be the
situation.
Best scenario.
So that's
then
you have 6,000 of these Dunlendings, and maybe half of them are skirmishers, and the other half would be footmen and stuff. So it makes sense to bring some of those into the middle, where most of the Easterlings are.
Right. That was going to be my next question. Is fight, or they're more close combat, right?
It's basically 50-50 with the Dunlendings.
God damn.
Oh,
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah.
yeah, can hear you.
Am I here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no. My poor internet.
So maybe half
Oh,
the.
I'm so delayed.
Oh. Maybe half the Dunlendings fighting the Mimikil. You said there were 4 Mimikil.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right, so as I have it now, I've got the Dunedain who are rushing the Wayne Riders after they kill the sentries to try and cause chaos there, set things on fire with the
Yep.
Galadrim. They're both going
Yep.
there. The Knights
Yep.
and half the Dunlendings, the footmen, are coming with you down the middle to the command tent. And
Yep.
the skirmishers of the Dunlendings are going to the Mummakil to try and cause them to run into the camp or take them out if they can. Is
That's
that
it.
correct?
That's correct.
Okay, excellent.
Has that accounted for all of the forces, all 10,000?
All of our forces.
No, what about
Yes.
theirs?
Yes, all of their, like, yeah. So, because there's so many of them, I've broken them down into these sections. But,
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
where the command tent is also where the bulk of the Easterling force is. Like, the command tent is up on a plateau, basically.
Mhm.
And around it is where the neat Easterling camp is, and that's where the bulk of the actual numbers come from. Is those
Right.
Easterling warriors with, like, the bronze armor.
Mhm. Right, and that's where is that where the siege weapons are as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the skirmishers can also, like, as they're going, cut ropes and do such things to hopefully
Yeah.
dismantle or damage some of the siege weaponry. I'm not terribly concerned about it at the moment.
Yeah. The siege weaponry, it could be a separate mission if you weren't going to attack them full force to take out the siege weapons, but because you're going to attack the whole army, it's not as crucial. Okay, that's a plan.
It
Yeah.
buys
Good.
plenty of time for the charge from the walls as well.
Yes.
Like it's only going to be a few moments, and then they'll be there as well. So hopefully,
And
Oh,
I'd
boy.
just like to add, kind of, Beregond will have been. Well, I've got together a sort of troop with braided snout, Adon and Wulfric. Eofred the Falcon, and various sort of archers, sort of sneaky people he's worked with and trained with, and maybe they can sneak out through the what's the name of the stream? The deeping
yeah.
stream, through the sort of getting the deeping stream whilst the battle's going on, and there's a charge of the Rohirrim, and there's battle going on in all sides. Hopefully they can get through to the siege weapons, just a small force to the siege weapons, to, if the attack on the Mamakil doesn't seem to be working well, to launch one of the trebuchets with flaming trebuchet fire at the Mamakil to send them wild and sort of over that. That's their kind of, and if that doesn't work, destroy the siege weapons. But they're a sort of small special forces unit with siege weapons, and turning the siege weapons against the most effective. Use the siege weapons against the Easterlings.
Yeah.
Hopefully against the Mamakil.
Okay, perfect. That's definitely a plan. So the discussion happens for some time with the elf commander and with Arahad, and with Wiglaf, who's commanding the forces. No, the queen is there. Sorry, Tiranan is commanding the Dunlendings. And so it's all agreed, and you will move basically when darkness starts to fall, and arrive in the middle of the night at the camp of the Easterlings. Okay.
Just to clarify, Beregond was not planning on going with this special forces unit that I was.
Okay.
I'm going to stick close to Faroth.
Okay, sure.
Somebody needs to guard his back. He always falls unconscious otherwise.
Okay, so then we'll kick off next session with the roll of initiative and fight the Easterlings.
Oh boy.
Yep. All right, see you next time.